Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. This is
Greetings.
what? What'd you say?
Greetings.
Yes, greetings. Greetings.
No, I was just reiterating the greetings.
Oh yeah, it's a yes.
Emphasizing them.
Yeah, Big G. Greetings. And welcome to Honey Badger Radio. You may have noticed that I've done a little reorganizing. I moved some things around so that the chat gets a prominent position on the screen. And that way you guys can see each other interacting. And also, those of you guys who are on Rumble can be a part of the action. I believe that Rumble, let me just drop some GIFs in there so that they will show up. Yes, they do work. And people on Twitch and DLive and even, I don't know how Twitter's chat works or Facebook's chat works, but yeah, all of it will work. So yeah, I mean, it's a little,
it does something.
They have a different system, but
the Facebook's chat is Byzantine.
Yeah,
I'm fairly certain there's at least 12 different forms of chat on Facebook.
Yeah, it's weird. When I was testing,
and they hide them.
This Social Stream Ninja, I would type test into Social Stream Ninja, which is what I'm using to merge all the chats together. And so if I put in a test in there, it'll send that message to every destination. So it'll show up on the Twitch chat, it'll show up in the Rumble chat, it'll show up in the YouTube chat, but it shows up in every comment section on Facebook. So there's random posts on Facebook that say test by me. I don't even know why that is. So Facebook's got a weird.
It's just the kaleidoscope of social media. You just input and then just project it onto every surface.
I'm testing everything at once, basically, is what on Facebook, and I don't know how to connect Twitter, so I can't sweat that right now. But hopefully there are people watching on Twitter/X. Yeah, see, there's some cool doges in the chat. We'll feature them so you guys can see. There's Mangaka92, and yeah, but should be.
It's an ongoing process.
It is, but I it looks good. I'm happy with it.
The treasure is the test comments we leave all over the place for people to boggle at in 50 years along the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reward. Is it the treasure? The treasure was the friends we made along the way.
Oh, it's the real blank are the friends we made along the way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the real
whatever it is,
are the technical difficulties we dealt with along the way. Okay.
All right, but anyway, we're gonna be getting into this video, which I will be showing to you guys in a moment. It is from a YouTuber named Chris Williamson, and he talks. I don't know how he started off, but I think it wasn't the rabbit hole he's currently in, which is essentially men, masculinity, dating, gender relations, things like that. And he is talking to Allison's good friend Alex DatePsych. So
I never would have predicted that I would be getting into it with a dating coach.
Yeah.
In fact, I went up to bat for the pickup artists however many years ago. I'm like, they're just helping guys be social. They got a bit of a bro-y language, but it's not like what they're doing is really that bad when you look at it. And everybody's like, oh, they're the devil. And then, of course, all the incels are the devil.
Yeah.
Now the pickup artists and the dating coaches are going after the incels. Oh, by the way, I apologize if it's picking up any sounds in the kitchen. My husband is making lefse.
I don't hear anything.
That is Norwegian potato flat bread.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the sounds being picked up by the mic. But yeah, I didn't really expect this to get into a argument with a dating coach of all things. But he's essentially shaming men for being afraid of the current landscape, or having any kind of negative feeling towards the current dating landscape. Even though the current dating landscape, let's face it, is controlled by feminist initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
Who, and they don't particularly like men, or at least they don't like heterosexuality. So.
That's true.
But, okay, so I should do my thing, right, Brian? The thing?
Yeah, do your thing, and then I got a super chow from our last maintaining frame that I'll read out.
Okay.
But you go ahead and do your thing, and then we'll get into it.
All right. So if you want to send us a message anytime during the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We get the full benefit of whatever funds you send our way, and you get the benefit of avoiding YouTube's minefield of censor suggestion. I don't know. Censorship seems like such a harsh word. I'm sure they wouldn't want to use the word censorship. So censor suggestions. YouTube censor suggestions. So anyway, we want to avoid that. Go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip and throw a few shekels in the hat. Tell us we're not screaming into the void about these issues. And maybe the best way to approach this is not to continue to shame men for being afraid of an environment that feminists and feminist initiatives are deliberately making more and more perilous for them. I just got it. There's too much peril. It's too much peril for you, Galahad. No, not Galahad.
Percival?
Percival? No. You've seen the Knights of the Holy Grail, right?
Oh, it's been a long time, but I know the one. Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yeah. The Castle Anthrax, which is their Holy Grail shaped beacon, which they set alight, and it was Galahad. I'm pretty sure it was Galahad the Chaste. And it was the castle young maidens, 18 and 19 and a half to 21 or something.
Yeah.
And then the spanking. Okay, sorry, that was a ridiculous aside. Go watch it, though. It's hilarious. It'd probably be a lot more fun than listening to dating coaches. But anyway, what was I going to say? All right, so if you want to avoid that, send us a message through feedthebadger.com/ just the tip. Actually, I think I finished that, and I was getting into, instead of telling men that they're cowards for not facing the peril, maybe we should start telling feminists to make it a little less perilous. I mean, they tell us, feminists tell us we want to make it. I mean, the feminists who are doing the initiatives, I'm not talking about coffee shop feminists who don't know anything about feminism, let's face it. I'm talking about the ones who got their fingers on, I don't know, the blackmail material for legislators, and they're using it to get what they want done. I'm talking about those feminists, the ones with power, the ones with influence, the ones with a voice. They want to make dating as difficult as possible for men in the hopes of preventing rape. How that works, I don't know. I mean, they want to have control over these cultural landscapes. And presumably it's because they say they're going to prevent rape. So even though there's never been a study that's made a causal connection between rape jokes and rape, feminists are there, providing the censorship that will end. Oh, I just got us demonetized as grape.
Whatever. We're not monetized anyway.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't even know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, let's watch.
Okay, so
at the beginning, right?
I got us. Yeah, I'm at the beginning, but I was gonna offer up like what we could go through, because it's like a 1 hour and 40-minute podcast. We're not doing the whole thing. But before we get into that, I'm going to. I got a super chow from before that I would like to read out. So that's the first thing I want to do, and so then this is from this is a super chat that was sent to our Discord a couple days ago, and it's it says, maintaining frame 75, women do not understand numbers. They gave us $5, thank you, and they say, I have an additional point to support Brian's theory that women do not understand numbers, such as the 666, 6 foot tall, 6-inch penis, or 6-pack, 6-figure salary. Feminists frequently accuse men of competing with each other based on salary, arguing that men use their salaries as a score to see who comes out on top. This is feminist projection. Yes, there are some men that engage in that, like, dick measuring stuff. Yeah, but I think generally, though, a guy who is mentally healthy will not compete with other men, but rather, especially if he works with them, they will essentially compete with each other in a way that brings the best out of each other, and then they all kind of win, right? So, I mean, that's what I think. And that's
the hope.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's what we want.
Not toxic.
Well, that's the thing, right? Right now, the climate is such that Men all have to one up each other to prove that they're not like, horrible human beings, because of the feminist culture we live in. So it does put them at each other's throats. So it's not just that it creates an animosity, or at least like a needless extra animosity between men and women, but it also makes animosity between men and women, because the women will purity test each other for like their piousness with regards to the sisterhood, and they will attack each other if they deviate, because that's what they've been brainwashed into. And the men will do the same. They will, they go around holding each other accountable for everything, and that's what's promoted. Do you remember that maid
accountable
thing
for
making women uncomfortable? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they hold each other. They're playing a game of who's the one good man, right?
Yeah.
Like we were seeing with the oh, what was that, Jubilee, where you had the feminist men who were basically their entire relationship with other men was competitive. So the one guy was like, I'm going to protect my women folk from other men because other men are awful and predatory. And the other guy was like, well, I'm the one with the most Pokemon. Look, I have the gender binary Pokemon, the fluid Pokemon, the black woman Pokemon, the left side paralyzed lesbian trans woman Pokemon, and then the final guy was like, no, all of my moral goodness comes purely from me as an individual. It's not something that is something that I share with other men. It's something that separates me from other men. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's the kind of toxic competition. Holding people holding each other to account for their behavior towards others I don't think that's the issue. Like, don't bully, don't abuse, don't do stuff like that. That's fine. But this kind of virtue signaling, which is very empty, and often doesn't really involve holding people to account for their behavior, but instead their speech, I don't think that's the same thing.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yep. Okay. So that's the super chow. Thank you. And I got a super chat as well from Xanathos. And they say, I recently rediscovered your content after a long time. Glad to see you guys are still around. Well, thank you. Please feel free to subscribe. He gave us £5, by the way. Please feel free to subscribe and stick around. And be a part of the conversation, So,
yeah, I mean, we're I guess in an interesting niche. We never really got big, but we never really disappeared either.
Yeah.
I think honestly it's because most people seem to either tie into and it's not really defined by what you necessarily believe, but who your enemy is. So most creators or YouTube commentators identify an enemy and keep identifying that enemy over and over again, or they offer something that is like our title today, use my secret technique and you'll be drowning in women. They offer something like that, and that's not what we've done. We've tried to keep everything honest to what we see is actually happening with the relationship of men and women. So it's not about pretending, and honestly it is pretending like you're a dating coach who can give this magic formula for men to be able to get any woman they want, or even get a woman, and it's not about that. It's about actually fixing the problem. We got a big problem. We are pretty much at terminal, guys.
Yeah,
we have embraced a long time ago the very misanthropic idea that men and women are defined through oppression. Men and women are defined through oppression. So the primary metric medium of exchange of men and women is oppression. So we've defined the most fundamental relationship in our culture as one that is antisocial, anti-human, destructive, and evil.
Yep.
And it's like, how long is a society going to survive at war with the most fundamental relationship that makes up that society? And we're getting to sort of the terminus of this particular runaway train. And instead of saying to guys, like just papering over the symptoms and saying, hey, okay, well, we just did You know, just wiggle your little toe at the full moon closest to the solstice and fart Yankee Doodle Dandy and you'll be awash in women. Instead of doing crap like that, we're just like, no, we got to look at this honestly.
Yeah.
Because if we don't fix it, there's not much future we're gonna have to look forward to, shall we say?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's get into the video. Thank you for the super chat and the super chow. So we're gonna go ahead and put this on the screen.
Welcome back. I
Yes,
hope you enjoy
and-
the new things we have to say now.
Yeah, I hope you stick around. All right, so this is Chris Williamson, and one of the full disclosure, I generally like Chris Williamson's content. I like that he's talking about these things. I think it's really easy for people to be dismissive or ignore it, and he's like trying to discuss it. Okay, so hopefully he'll find his way. You know, it doesn't have to be us, but just somebody who is like talking about these things from, I think, a very productive perspective. But right now he's talking with a guest named Alex DatePsych, which I assume is an alias that he uses for his, I guess he runs a company or a business where people will pay him and he'll show them how to pull women. So it's kind of like that, but it's under the, it's not like your typical sort of player PUA type. At least that's not the what he's selling. It's more like oh, I'm a dating psychologist and I understand these things from a psychological or evolutionary standpoint or whatever. So, but fortunately, one of the things that I do like about Chris Williamson is that his long form podcast like this one, or interviews or discussions, is about an hour and 40 minutes long, but it's broken up into little sections, which I think is fantastic. So I thought I would tell you what the sections are, and then Allison, you can tell me which one you want to hear. So the first one is just called "Why Have Men Stopped Approaching Women?" Now that might be an easy one to just jump right into. Then there's do men need to be so risk averse? Takeaways from Alex's survey on dating struggles. So this is the thing that kind of like got my attention, because Allison got, I guess this guy put out a tweet. I
don't understand this.
What?
Yeah, okay, let me just get into this. Okay, so do men need to be so risk adverse? Okay, you realize that feminists are gauging the system that punishes criminals for their behavior, and they are extending it to what used to be considered relatively innocent, or at least not criminal activities in the dating sphere, right? This is what they're doing. They're using the criminal justice system and they're weaponizing it against men who are seeking dates. And you're like, well, at what point do guys like you step back and you say, maybe it's a bit too much? You know?
Mm-hmm.
How much pressure do feminists have to apply to men before guys like this recognize that the problem is the pressure that feminists are applying to men not to approach?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do we need orbital satellites, feminist-inspired orbital satellites that vaporize men whenever they go 2 inches too close to a woman? Like, this is getting ridiculous. They're using the apparatus in our society designed to punish and prevent certain behaviors, and they're targeting it at men who are approaching women for a date, basically.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they hide this behind saying, well, if you just do it, if you men used your Professor X psychic powers and figured out that the woman that you are approaching only wants you to approach on between 2:30 and 2:33 on a Wednesday on the 6th day on the month, only after Friday where she's gone to ballet class and has had a nice drink with her, like, how? Okay? How fucking insanely omnipotent do men have to get, right? Before they can navigate this minefield, before you start saying, all right, this is too much. This is ridiculous. Before you start directing your censure and your shaming where it belongs, which is at feminists, women and men who are seem to be at a war. Sorry, I got that out. Took me a while. In a war against women consenting to men in any capacity. I want you to just cogitate on that. We have a group of people who are very powerful, and they do not like the idea that women consent to men.
Yep.
At all. Like, it's a personal offense to them. And they want to make it so dangerous for a man to say, so we're in a contract now. I mean, it's a verbal contract, but I can accept that your verbal agreement to this activity is somewhat binding. They want to make it so men cannot trust women's word when the situation occurs, because they are in a war against women's consent. They want to make it so that women can not consent.
Mm-hmm.
Or the amount, or the target for women's consent is so small that it is almost subatomic, or it is subatomic. And what I mean by that is they are, the progression of these campaigns, right, is to restrict what is considered how women can express consent, right? Yeah. Initially, it was just, okay, if she fights back, that's obviously not consent, right? Yeah. So a woman can express consent. She has a wide open field to decide how she expresses her consent. All right? Then it's no means no. So there's no more coquettish, no, with a cute little giggle anymore. No means no. So the instant she says no, you stop. All right? That restricted women's ability to express consent. And then we had the yes means yes, which constricted it further. And now we have enthusiastic consent, which means that the only women who can genuinely express consent are freaking sexual Olympists and gymnastics. Like the women who are completely enthusiastic, they actually take initiative. And I know a lot of guys would love that, but that means that only those women can express consent. You starfishes, yeah, ladies, you've just had your ability to enact any kind of sexual contract with men revoked. And honestly, for their own protection, men should not have sex with starfishes anymore. Yeah. Only women with really good glutes are allowed to have sex now. They're and you see how every step they restrict the ability for women to consent to sex, because that is what they are in war in. And these guys, instead of pointing that out, go to the men and say, well, why aren't you pushing after the no? Why aren't you pushing after the no? Why aren't you? Wait, I mean, she's not saying no, so why don't you just keep pushing? Why don't you just keep pushing? Oh, she's starfishing? Well, you just need to keep going. Like, this is what they're doing. They're engaging in fucking entrapment.
Yeah. Maybe we should hear them speak.
Okay, all right.
And not put words in our
sorry,
mouth. Sorry,
I had a very long Twitter exchange. Not with Chris, but with the other one.
Yeah, so I'll go, with Alex DatePsych. I'll go to the why have men stopped approaching women bit, the beginning, because that's basically what you're speaking to, and we'll see what he says.
What's going on with risk aversion and men not approaching women?
Sure. So risk aversion refers to a personality trait or disposition where individuals are basically more accepting or more willing to take risks. So high risk aversion would be individuals who are less willing to take risks. And a big risk for men, at least a perceived risk, is of course approaching women. So recently I conducted a survey and I used a measure of risk aversion.
Okay, stop,
and
please. All right, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Literally, like, I have watched this march towards restricting women's consent. And what this man is saying is, men, don't listen to the feminist campaigns about no means no. Just keep going when she says no. Don't listen to the campaigns about no, yes means yes. Keep going even she doesn't say yes. Don't listen to the campaigns about enthusiastic consent. Keep going even when she isn't. Okay? This has got to be some kind of malpractice.
Certainly,
and you can transfer that to the dating, which it's a little bit more vague. I know the consent stuff is more clear, then the progression is more clear, which is why I use it. But they have the same messaging when it just comes to approaching women. I mean, you see the billboards with the list of things that are now harassment, and he's basically saying, well, this is now technically legal in, for example, the UK. Maybe it isn't in the US yet. Although that Gillette ad suggests that even approaching a woman is
Oh no,
is
it's.
now
I mean, it may not be illegal, but there certainly could be social ramifications. Yeah. So.
Me too's, you know, and so we're looking at this situation, and he's encouraging men to go against what is becoming the prevailing social and political expectation of men. And this is why I said recently in a tweet, would dating coaches actually tell men to keep initiating if they could be culpable for incitement every time a guy got a harassment charge?
Yeah.
And the thing is that these guys will never, ever look at the situation that men are in and say, hey, that's not fair. They will always look at men and say, oh, you're cowards. You're risk adverse. Well, that's the freaking point. That's why the feminists have engaged the criminal justice system to start making these kinds of things approaching women. You know, it's definitely sexual harassment in the workplace now. Okay, that's why they've started to engage these institutions and more the criminal injustice system. Like, the criminal injustice system knows how to prevent people from doing something, right? That's sort of what they're there for.
Yeah.
So we have the organ of our society that is, you know, lining up its scopes to prevent men from approaching women. And this guy is saying, hey, don't mind that red dot, dudes. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Keep going. Instead of saying, hey, maybe we should stop that.
And also, when he says he conducted a poll, does he like have, is it like a scientific poll, or is it like a Twitter poll? Because I thought that he was like, he just put a poll up on Twitter. I thought. I mean, that's what you were the one that was talking with him. Well, he might have done
an internet poll.
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe.
I asked him for his site, and now based on what I'm seeing here, it's basically himself. So I'm guessing that this is, honestly, this has probably got about as much legitimacy as a cosmopolitan poll.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's another thing to consider. All right, well, let's keep going.
Asked about approach behavior, basically approaching for dates, approaching on the street, approaching in a bar, talking to someone at work or in class. And yeah, there's an inverse correlation, or I should say a positive correlation, with that risk aversion and willingness to approach, right? That people who are more risk averse, much less willing to approach, they tend to have more fears as well, as far as the potential consequences of approaching a woman, asking for a date.
What did they say were the primary fears?
All right, but here's the thing. And this is something I mentioned in the Twitter too. Risk aversion is a personality trait. And what he probably means is conscientious. So that this might not just be risk aversion to self. It might also be men who are risk adverse to creating an unpleasant experience for a woman. Which none of which the unpleasant experience, he just completely blew through that and insulted men further with a tweet where he essentially said that men who are risk adverse about creating an unpleasant experience for women are the same men who are yelling at women on Twitter. And I'm like, you can't make that assumption. These could be two completely distinct groups of men. And also, people's behavior online is many, many degrees worse than their behavior in person. All right?
Yeah.
So the two have no bearing on each other. But regardless, this idea that men who are risk adverse are somehow bad. I mean, think about it. I mean, God, I can't even fucking, like, how dare these men? How dare they have such contempt for men who are not like them?
That is the issue. In the comments, you see, like, you know, men saying, you know, two, like, in shape, well put together, decent looking dudes are, like, puzzled as to why, you know, men are so averse to approaching women. Like, they're literally the kind of guys that are, I wouldn't say not likely, I wouldn't even say unlikely, but less likely to get into some kind of, like, social trouble for approaching women. Because whether or not you get in big trouble, it ultimately just comes down to whether or not she's attracted to you. Like, this is completely in the hands of the woman. And men generally don't know where they rate themselves. Like, they generally think of themselves as bland or normal, and that they know for sure it means that they're not good enough because women's standards are through the roof. So, like, why would a guy approach a woman? Why? I mean, it's too dangerous.
Yeah, don't take dating advice from any
It's
man
not-
who's
Yeah,
not
go ahead.
mid.
Yeah, it's not.
No,
It's
really,
not.
honestly. It's
No,
these
I
guys, their
agree.
dating advice is absolutely worthless.
Yeah.
Like, you don't listen to men who look like this. Why would you? Do you think they, like, it's like listening to a woman who's a 10
Yeah.
dating. I mean, it's not quite that bad because at least they're men, right? But they don't have a freaking clue. They're talking from complete ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, I think that guys really shouldn't, like, there's really no point. And I really think this isn't about actually getting dating advice. It's about living out a fantasy, to be
Yep.
frank.
Yep.
And that these guys present the fantasy, but also it's even more than just, I wasn't even referring to the physicality of these two men. I was referring to the psychology. Like, you
Mhm.
know that men who are risk adverse are still men, and they have every right to be. And the fact that our society has stopped catering to men who have any sense of social desirability and concern and social anxiety, as in ability to be humiliated, the fact that our society has stopped actually making it possible for those men to comfortably, at least partially comfortably, I mean, I'm sure they're still going to have to manage rejection, but not manage all the other risks. You know,
Mhm.
that the reason that the fact that our society has made it so men like that don't have a chance or have much less of a chance or are opting out, that's on society. Because I can tell you that men who are risk adverse have existed throughout history. All right?
Yep.
And the best societies are the ones where they flourish. Okay? The best societies are the ones where they aren't ruled by some guy with a freaking forehead like a cliff, with a gigantic goddamn not mallet, like a club,
Mhm.
and he's the one who makes the rules. I guarantee you those are the societies we don't want to live in.
Yes.
So yeah, like even when he says, oh, men who are risk adverse aren't approaching. Okay. So that's a fundamental aspect of personality. One, it's very difficult to shift. And it's not going to, like, it's only going to get worse because of the social influences that we see around us. Like all of the campaigns against strange women approaching men. Not even just the campaigns. Look at all the TikTok stuff that goes out.
Yeah.
I mean, how many TikTok videos are there on women who are like, oh, some man looked at me, I am verklempt, I have to go to my therapist and get Xanax, you know? Like,
Mhm.
how many of those compared to TikTok videos? Like, has anybody ever seen a TikTok video in which some woman is like complimented by a man and she's like, oh, that's really sweet of you, I really appreciate the thought, you know, not interested, but no.
Yeah.
Never seen that. And yet and so even our social milieu is filled with condemnation, demonization, and destructive attitudes towards men who express any kind of interest in women. It's filled with it. So how are you going to help these guys overcome the anxiety induced everywhere? I mean, this is beyond a phobia. This is a phobia that's enforcing, like the society itself is enforcing on men everywhere. So how are you going to help them do that? Or are you just going to shame them more if they don't? Okay. This really pissed me off. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Let's play some more of this.
These guys were concerned about.
Sure. So some of the primary fears are basically social rejection and social consequences. There were some differences where individuals higher in risk aversion might fear more legal consequences as well, like some kind of report to HR, the police, or even something like that. But it tends to be mostly kind of a fear of like loss of reputation.
Yeah, well, I suppose, you know, we have a basis for this ancestrally, that if you were rebuffed by one of the women in your tribe, that probably wouldn't do much for your credibility with the rest of the women in the tribe, and that your mates might take the piss out of you. So I certainly understand from that angle. For the women as well that are listening, the all-consuming fear as a guy of seeing a girl across the room and looking at her and thinking, I should go and say hello because I think that she's nice, is like fucking mortal, it's reality bending. It's so strange. It's such a bizarre, and again, I'm sure that there's loads of guys listening that I don't know what you're talking about. I can just go up and talk to anybody. But I think
just pausing for the banana.
Okay.
I mean, he at least recognizes that it's difficult, but I don't know that he knows like how dangerous and toxic it's become. Like, you know, being shy or fearing rejection, that's something that we've always had, especially as men, because men have to be the ones to approach. But it's been made like nearly impossible for most young guys to navigate now because of, it's not just like, oh, I'm ashamed because she didn't like me. It's not just that. You know, it's like a far more there's far more dangerous consequences. Let's put it that way. So, I got a super chow. So, Richard Beer gave us a super chow, and it's $5, and says, "Isn't now an offense warranting arrest in British Columbia to make someone feel uncomfortable on public transportation? Apparently, anyone can declare that they were made to feel uncomfortable by merely overhearing a conversation that they weren't even a participant in." I mean, that sounds right. I don't know. British Columbia, you mean BC, like in the United States, or do we have a BC? I don't know. Or in Canada. I don't know. But yes, that sounds.
What just boggles my mind. It just boggles my mind that we have people working with the criminal justice system. We have people working with whatever is creating like the social milieu and media to present and to try to prevent men from approaching women in the auspices of supposedly trying to prevent sexual harassment. But because nobody can really define that, you really have it just ends up preventing approaches towards men and to punish these things. And there's no room for this in these guys' mind, maybe not Chris, but this other guy's mind, for the effects of society itself telling men to stop approaching women.
All right, let's play some more.
All right, let's keep going.
I think even the average normal risk aversion man has this pretty sort of guttural sense of trepidation before they go and do it.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, the most confident man, it doesn't matter, they're going to be a little bit nervous at least approaching a woman. And I think that's something in pickup artist communities that they've kind of caught on to, is almost kind of an exposure therapy to that. Which, you know, exposure therapy, when people have phobias, they're exposed gradually to whatever the stimulus is that reduces that fear. And so maybe they've kind of caught on, like, approach 100.
This guy's a psychologist. You don't just throw people into exposing them in what they're afraid of. You have to build up their ability to manage their fear, right? Nothing that I've seen that he's tweeted out, and I could be corrected, correct me in the comments, talks about how to support men while approaching reducing their fear in this circumstance. And at what point, I mean, really, if you think about it, if the same risks had to be run by women in order to get this outcome, I'm pretty sure this guy would be calling out the institutions that are creating the risks, not the women for being risk adverse. I just wonder if it's because he holds women to a lower standard because he thinks they're a lower form of life. I mean, maybe he would. Oh, it's a thought experiment, so you know he could probably get out of it by saying, "Well, I don't know," or just not even recognize it. But really, think about that. If women were expected to run these legal risks, would we tolerate that?
Yeah.
I mean, hell, we don't even, honestly, actually, I already know the answer to that. We don't even want women to run the legal risks of their own coercive and sexually, like, rapey behavior. We want to shield women from the risks of that. We don't even want to apply those risks to women, much less say to women, "Oh, well, if you're unattractive and he doesn't want your approach, you could lose your social standing, your career, and maybe even go to jail." Like, I mean, if men could do that to women, do you think that this guy would still be saying, hey, women, man up? I don't think so.
Yep.
All right.
All right. I got a super chat from Albert Data Retro. Gives us $2 Canadian. And he says, PUAs are the biggest simps on Earth. Okay. I don't know. This guy looks like a PUA. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know if he really is one or not. I mean, I guess so. I guess so. I don't know. I don't know how he would classify himself. But yeah. Okay, let's play some more.
Women and you will be less afraid. Yeah, that's what it is. But of course, most men aren't out there approaching 100 women, and that kind of nervousness, it persists, even if an individual is very, very confident to begin with.
Yeah, I think that was definitely one of the positive sides of the pickup world, was that it taught men to overcome approach anxiety just through exposure therapy, right? It gamified exposure therapy, which is pretty reliable when you're trying to get rid of all manner of phobias. If it's a spider that you're scared, or you agoraphobia and you don't want to leave the house, it's one step at a time, very, very small exposures, etc. And given that this is such a difficult one, I asked, it was ages ago, but I spoke about what it's like for a woman to approach a man and be rejected, and had some really interesting responses from women that it's really painful for them, because
no shit,
they almost feel like they've broken the social norm and still not succeeded. So there's kind of two layers of shame that they've had to go through as a
Yeah, but how many women were like, I don't know, lost their job for approaching a man, or got in trouble with HR? Still
yeah,
what?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, obviously they thought that if they're the ones who approach, then the man is obligated to agree to them. Like, sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when like the way that he's framing this, it's like they defied the social norm. Well, so what? Like, like, the guy still has the right to reject you.
Yeah.
And I just the way that this is framed is odd. Maybe
I
I'm
see.
reading too much into it.
No,
Yeah.
no, I think I get it. As far as like, I just want to say, as far as the exposure therapy thing goes, I think that it would be, I think there is some truth to it. But I don't think these guys are saying it. They're not putting a fine enough point on it. So what I mean is, I used to be really, really introverted. Like, I couldn't do what I'm doing as this show. I was really bad when I was in high school. I remember I was called up to the front of the class to, I don't even remember what I had to do. It was like solve a problem or answer a question or read something. I don't remember. And I was shaking because I was just so nervous and shy. And when I graduated, I had to get a job. And so my very first job was, I was a busboy. And so as a busboy, I had to interact with people. And as I worked, at first, obviously, I was very shy. But over time, because of the kind of jobs that I had to learn to talk with people, and then later, look them in the eye, and then later it just kept building. But the thing, the main point I'm making though is that if you have this issue, the best way to get over it you have to like interact with people in a very impersonal context. So yeah, I'm at a job and there's a customer, I don't know them, I don't really, they're not my friend, they're not somebody I'm interested in being friends with, they're not somebody I'm romantically interested in, they're just somebody that I have to talk to. And so I do that, and I do it over and over, and after a while it gets easier and easier. And then so I think that they have, I'm not even saying they're making this point, because I think that DatePsych guy is saying guys just approach women, which I think is just a really bad idea. It's just really risky. And you also have to be concerned with, like I said before, if women don't find you attractive and you have the gall to approach them, then they will take it a different way. They will see it as inappropriate, like you're breaking the social norm of approaching a woman without her permission or without the ability to read her mind. But if you can talk with women, even women you're not attracted to, in a platonic way, like just saying hello, or, are you enjoying the party or whatever, and don't take it any further and then walk away, then I think it will become easier for men to talk to women and just men. Yeah, but you just set that the context. So there is some value in doing that, but
Yeah,
the
but
way that
they're
yeah, the
framing
way
it.
that they're framing it makes it sound they're not doing that. They're not saying, look, maybe if because and also they're being dismissive of the real challenge because like that's not even half the battle. Like the ability to walk up and approach a woman and say hello, or whatever. That's not even half the battle. The real issue is the way that women have been I don't know how else to say it, propagandized to find men threatening. And like, so if a strange man approaches, the woman doesn't decide whether or not he's like, a threat to her based on like how his approach is, but rather the fact that he did approach. So she'll make a judgment before he gets there because she is constantly on her toes because she was told all this propaganda about men. And so if you do it the right way, you have to be able to like, it's such a tricky situation.
Well, okay.
And in a way, it's not right now as it stands, it's not really worth it for men. Like, I don't see the benefit. Like, we have to deprogram women's fear. And then we have to like make it to where men and women can come together comfortably without this fear, because I think it feeds in both directions. Men fear women and women fear men. So
well, also, like in today's era, it's not just the fear that women have for men, it's how that fear destroys any appreciation for masculinity in men.
yeah.
So, and at the end of the day, you're going to risk rejection from this fearful creature, and then you're also, what are you going to get? A creature that fears you. Who the hell wants that in their life?
Yeah.
Who wants to juggle that for the rest of their life? Okay, and so there's that. I'm just like, sorry again for any sounds in the background. There was a bit of a kerfuffle because
Nope.
the cat just walked over his lefse and left some footprints.
I don't hear anything.
Okay, all right, but yeah, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle, but I'm glad you guys didn't hear anything. But the other thing is that this is I think these people, because they want to make money and they want to advance a particular narrative, they're not really honest about how to approach this.
Mm-hmm.
And if men want to do this, they have to look at it holistically.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, the DatePsych guy, he's not selling a product to women. He's selling a product to men. So he has to make men. I think
he might also be selling to women, but
he should be. He should probably. Well, you know what? He might be, but I don't know what he could offer them, because it seems that women don't need anything. They just need to wait until the right guy comes along. No, according to him, I'm saying.
Well, yeah, at this point, yeah, you're right. They don't really need to do anything. But what I mean is that holistically, like if you're a guy who wants to get a relationship with a woman, I would suggest just setting that aside and working on your social relationships outside of that aim. And even consider going to a place where people will really appreciate your presence. Like people in need, older people, and just like volunteer, even like at an animal shelter.
Yep.
So that it's someplace where when you come and see them, they're going to be happy to see you and grateful, and maybe even give you a smile, right? Work on that. Work on improving and increasing your situations where you can be social. Don't focus on approaching women.
Exactly.
If it comes to the point, as you increase your confidence in being social in other aspects of your life, that'll reduce your anxiety if you ever do approach women, right? I mean, because it's like, and I don't want to downplay the fear because it's very real, and I am not going to argue to any guy who's like, yeah, the juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
The risk of rejection, the risk of a false accusation isn't worth what I'm going to get in the end of the day. I'd be like, yeah, you do you. That is your choice. You have every right to make that choice, and I totally understand it. If a guy is like, no, I really want to keep doing, and he is having problems with that kind of fear of rejection, then again, I would go the holistic route. Build up your social relationships outside of that circumstance. And really something that's really key, I think, that can really increase your social confidence is to find someplace outside of approaching women where you're making other people happy and you're making them feel grateful for your presence, or you're doing something that they're grateful for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play some more. I can jump to the next bit. So the next section is, do men need to be so risk averse?
So have you looked longitudinally at this? Do you know if men's risk aversion and fear of approach has increased over time?
I don't know for sure, but I think there is some research on that I haven't done that's looked at risk aversion in younger generations, and they may be more risk averse. So it might be something that we see particularly with the Zoomers, right? With the younger generation, that they are more risk averse than earlier generations. And there's a lot of kind of converging evidence on that, they're waiting later in life to take risks, like getting a job, going to school, getting a driver's license.
Maybe there's other reasons for this. Like, what was...
Yeah, but this is...
Oh, frivolous. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay. There's other reasons for it. Well,
no, I'm saying why are the Zoomers more risk averse? Zoomer men more risk averse than, say, the millennials, who are more risk averse than, say, Generation X. Like, what changed? What's changed? Not I mean, there's some chemical things you could say, but I think culturally,
yes,
it's very different. The landscape is completely different.
And how does saying to those men, well, just man up, do a damn thing. Like, if it's a cultural shift, then you need to look at the kind of messaging that you need to change to give them a sense of to improve or to reduce their anxiety, right? And I just, the other thing is, the reason why I said it's frivolous is because that, do we really need to worry at this point if men are approaching women? Like, because there's a lot worse things that if men are, increasing in risk aversion, like, for example, continuing our infrastructure.
Yeah.
That seems like a much more important problem. Continuing to have young men go into those jobs that young women just won't do. They might do it, I guess, when everything's crashing down their ears, but how good are they going to be at it? So it seems like this is a lot more dire than men are just not approaching women. But, like, goddamn, I really want to cut that thing off his chin.
Anyway, yeah, I know. I know. It... All right, let's hear some more.
These other things that would indicate, okay, they're kind of hesitant to enter the adult world, so to speak.
Yeah, Gene Twangy's work in Generations is fantastic with this slow life strategy or extended adolescence. It explains an awful lot. Me and Bus have been talking about this generalized risk aversion syndrome. And it's across, it permeates absolutely everything, but it really, really shows up in dating, because dating is largely a game of risk remediation, right? It's how can I kind of deal with the inevitable uncertainty of going up to someone. I don't know if they like me. I don't know if they're single. I don't know if I'm going to look silly. It very much is kind of like the vanguard of risk. I suppose other things, moving out of the house, changing jobs, moving locations, but certainly a much lower stakes, more common one, which is what makes it interesting, because it is lower stakes. It's like, what, you get rejected by somebody when you go up to them? Like, there's literally no cost.
Actually, no, that's not the issue. That it's not simply that. Although that can be tough. And you already expressed that with women it's even tougher. That doesn't mean that, women are most affected, but it means that they know that this is not a position they want to be in, and you're not prepared to put them in that position. So this is on men. It's not, oh, I'm going to look silly. It's, I don't want to make her uncomfortable. I don't want to, make her think that I'm a predator or dangerous. Why would she have that idea? Have you looked around at our culture. Have you seen?
I did an
Yeah, go ahead.
I did an equally valid survey to this dude,
Equally valid.
and I found that the number one reason why men weren't approaching women, and this excludes, the juice isn't worth the squeeze reasons. The number one reason was afraid of false accusations. The number two reason was felt they weren't attractive enough.
Yeah.
And the number three reason, I forget, but the number four reason was, and I only was allowed 4 reasons, so it's not really meaningful, but it was the one where they just didn't want to create an unpleasant situation for a woman. So it's like, this is...
Yeah. Right.
This is something that needs to be fixed without... You can say to men to man up, but you're not going to fix anything. Like, this is what I said to this guy. In 10 years, it's going to be worse, and your solution will have done nothing.
Yep.
All right, let's watch.
Let's watch some more. Let me see. Yeah, there's a most replayed part coming up. So
apart from a tiny little bit of discomfort, and yet the felt sense of it is a world-ending catastrophe.
Exactly, yeah. And something kind of related to that is that we see, for example, individuals higher in the dark triad, they have more sexual partners, psychopaths as well, people that score high in the hair psychopathy checklist. We see, example, people that have a criminal record may have earlier sexual debut, so they're having sex earlier in life or having more partners. And these are also all things that are associated with a higher tolerance for risk or even risk seeking.
Well, this is definitely stuff that we want to, this is definitely stuff we want to encourage, eh?
Yeah, really. You don't think there's something wrong with that? More than that, though, don't you think it's worth asking why women are drawn to that? Like, maybe that's something? Because, there are men that exist that have dark triad traits. There are psychopaths. There are convicts. There are criminals, violent offenders, and women love them. So maybe you should be asking, is this really what we want? Is this good for our society? Is it, what's happening right now is that there are, men of a very small percentage that are forming harems. And because the women are willing to share them. Because that's how badly they want the top men. That's how badly. And they feel entitled to that. So I don't know. Harry Pierce said, you need to be psycho-maxing. You need to be thug-maxing. Thug-maxing. Yeah. Thug-maxers rise up. No, I'm joking. I think he's joking.
No, actually, you know what? I shouldn't even say that. Maybe what you need to do is thug-max, but, secretly be maxing. It's
be a gentle giant.
And you could do this. Then you could do the switcheroo.
With a heart of gold.
And here's what you do, guys. You thug max, okay, but you keep all of your sensitivities and your kindness, and just keep it to yourself, and thug max, and then when you get the relationship with the girl, you spring, the internal nice guy on her, and you just let her think you tamed her, that she tamed you. That's what you do.
Yep. All right,
you have to hit her with a 1-2 punch. Start with the thug maxing, and then do the right hook of the nice guyism.
Might enjoy risk more, so it's kind of like, why do they have more partners or something like that? There's some indication that they might actually even select down. So it might not be that they're more attractive, but it could be that they're much more tolerant of risk, or that they even seek risks out. So these are the people kind of approaching more aggressively.
What I've noticed, and guys like this, they go after the sure thing, right? You say they're less risk tolerant, but a lot of these guys, he's absolutely right here. They go after the sure thing.
Oh, you mean they go down a little bit?
Yeah, well, they go down in looks. The ones that are a little healthier might go down in looks. The ones that are skanky, they just go straight to scrape something off the street.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. He's not wrong here. All right.
Yeah, I believe you. Okay.
So they're kind of reaping the fruits of that, so to speak.
Was it you that discovered 50% of men aged 18 to 30 haven't approached a woman in the last year?
Yes, that sounds right.
dude.
Yeah.
I've
the men
been
that have
throwing that statistic all over the internet, so I'm glad that I got the citation right.
Yeah, and the men that have approached are doing remarkably well. A lot of the men who have approached, they more than
No,
half
they're
have gotten a date from it. And it goes down if you look to like long-term relationships. How many dates turn into
Are
a
you
long-term
fucking
relationship?
kidding me? A date? Yeah, I've seen his stats. Like,
A date, it doesn't mean much. I mean,
that
like,
doesn't
women
mean
go on dates
a
with men
date-
just so they can get free meals. So it doesn't
Yes.
mean much. And don't take them to the Cheesecake Factory.
No, God, no.
No.
God, no. She'll just
So-
Oh, God.
yeah.
No, but it's like, I've seen his stats. They aren't actually that great.
Yeah.
I think maybe, what was it? Maybe 14% ended up in a long-term relationship.
Mm-hmm.
God damn. So, and you gotta know that those are the ones that are probably doing the best, right? So progressively, it's going to be less and less.
Mm-hmm. If that number is lower than it was, and the first dates that like become second dates or even third dates, but more importantly become like long-term relationships, assuming that's the goal, that's what you really want to look at. People want to play the field, that's fine. I don't, that's your business. That's not what I'm talking about. But like what I think most people want is something like stable and easy, honestly. Like most people want to just find somebody, get married, settle down, and be done with it. That's like, even if they, when they're really young, maybe no, but like eventually, pretty early on, that's usually what they're thinking about. And the question is, does this data show that that's where those first dates lead? And I have my doubts.
No, they don't seem to. Like, so I think about 14% are in a long-term relationship. No marriages, apparently, as far as I can tell.
There you
Maybe
go.
14%. So.
Well, and that's another thing too. Why aren't men getting married? I mean, we talk about it on the show all the time. It is tremendously risky. So, like, why isn't he addressing that? This is the thing that bugs me, is that, you got all this stuff to say about it, but you're not looking at like the systemic problems. And I hate to use the word systemic, but it applies here.
Well,
with
Brian,
with
all
marriage.
you have to do is blame men.
Yeah,
You
we
don't
can
have
just
to look
blame
at
men
systemic problems at all.
for not
Society
coping
doesn't
enough.
have to look at itself.
Yeah.
When it can just blame men. That's going to be a really productive approach to fixing society's problems. We don't have to look at it. We don't have to look at any of that. We don't have to look at the systemic problems. We don't have to look at the way that we might be failing men. We just have to blame men harder. That'll work.
Yep.
And you
By
know
the
what's
way-
really funny is
Oh yeah, go ahead.
you create this system where the least risk-adverse men, who are positively correlated with the most violent, the most sexually aggressive, the most rapey men, you incentivize and you make sure that the dating pool is restricted to them more and more and more. So feminists turn around and institute even tighter controls on men approaching women, which gets rid of even more of the risk-adverse men, leaving even more psychopaths be the only men willing to approach women and the only men women can choose from, which will lead to feminists increasing. It's like this negative spiral, and nobody wants to point it out.
Yep.
Like, we are absolutely humping this stupidity to our doom. And I know that you said Chris is he's searching for, I guess, answers.
Well, I mean, he's talking to people. I generally like his content, but yeah, I mean, I don't think he's there yet. But go ahead. We're gonna say.
No. Well, I'm gonna say, like, he's talking to this guy, of course, not talking to us.
Right. Yeah. Well, not yet. But yeah, I know what you mean. Not yet. All right, let's play. Let me jump. I think I'm gonna go to the next bit. So there's takeaways from Alex's survey on dating struggles, trying to connect the ideology of incels. So there's one that could be interesting. Why competence is sexy, what people misunderstood about online dating, women's preferences for dad bods is kind of stupid. The gap in libido. Is it important to ask about body count? But there is a bigger section called What the Red Pill is Doing to Marriage. Should we go into that one? Or is there anything jumping out at you that you're interested in?
No, let's finish what we're doing right now.
All right.
Because
Sure,
I
sure,
see
but-
there's another
Yeah.
another little like upward bend in the roller coaster coming up soon.
Yeah, a bit.
The men who are approaching, they're doing pretty well, actually.
Oh,
Okay, so 50% of men aged 18 to 30 haven't approached a woman in the last year. Of that 50% of them did get a date.
I would
One
have to
date.
check again, but it might even be higher. It might have
and
been
how?
of the
Actually, here's another thing. What's the ratio to rejection to date?
Like, how many men who have been rejected have also gone on a date?
And how much do you expect? Like, a man goes through a year's worth of rejection, gets one date. Okay?
Mhm.
Like, at some point, even the government allows men who've been searching for a job for years to just sort of fall off and be like, I'm not doing it anymore. But apparently that's not the case when it's men looking for a woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like eventually, don't you think that if these men spend a year trying to get a date and they only, only 50% of them get one, only like 13% of them get any kind of ongoing relationship, don't you think those are really terrible odds?
Mhm. Yeah, those are bad odds for sure. Those are bad odds. All right.
the men who had it might have even been about 70%, at least got a date or a phone number or some kind of romantic connection there. And it goes down to about 20% that got a
Phone number?
long-term relationship out of it. But sex is higher. So you kind of see it go down like date, sex is a little bit lower, long-term relationship is a little bit lower. But mostly they're kind of people that approach women, they're getting dates from it.
That's, I don't know, that seems pretty positive for the.
What were you gonna say?
Good Lord, that's positive? 1 year of rejection and only 50% of men got a date.
Seems like a problem.
That seems like a problem to me.
Yep. But are you allowed to say that though? Are you allowed to look at
And
that
the
and
other
say,
thing is,
"Ooh, this is a problem," because like we live in a society where we are
We
not
live in a
supposed to be
society.
concerned with the dating world specifically as it applies to women. So we can't even say, "Hey, ladies," it's sort of like hey, ladies, why aren't you letting these guys take you out? And it's like you're just not allowed to do that. So we're not going to we're just not going to get to that, I guess. What were you
no,
going to say,
we're
Allison?
we have a situation where the feminists are arranging social institutions to start making it more and more difficult for men to approach women. There's no way to get around that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this is the reward. You run that gauntlet, and out of a year of rejection, 50% of you might get a date. Which,
Yeah.
who knows? It might just be a foodie call.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
20%
Could be
in
a
a
foodie
long-term
call.
relationship, no, that doesn't work. Like, I mean, certain amount of that 20% supposedly, which that's not what I read in his statistics, it was more like 13, was people who had 5 long-term relationships in a year. Like, something is either wrong with your numbers, or they don't know what the hell you mean by long-term relationship. Because, long-term relationship is like you only get 1 in a year, in a lifetime, maybe 2. All right. But
Yeah.
to me, those numbers sound really bad.
Yeah.
But let's keep going.
The approach, and I suppose there's an argument to be made. Well, of course, the kind of guys that are approaching women, they're the ones that are full of the confidence, or they're the ones that know it's a sure thing. Of course, they're getting into relationships and having sex and going on dates and getting phone numbers and stuff. But given the fact that this is an exclusively agentic decision that you're making, right? Yeah, sure. If you have a little bit more confidence in yourself, it's going to make making the decision more easy. But ultimately, there's a huge chunk of people in that 50% that are doing it that probably are just as unsure and just as terrified and just as uncertain as you are. So yeah, I mean, that's a serious white pill for why you should approach women.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the things that I've come to believe is that, you know, as far as the whole PUA thing and all of that goes, yeah, like a lot of it just comes down to approaching women, and it does seem to work. It's interesting you said agentic as well, because I have some more data. I haven't put it out yet, but this looks at like locus of control and dating difficulties. So
All right, I'm pausing it there for the banana. He's going to go into locus of control.
And
for
again,
some reason, yeah.
For some reason, I asked him for his sources. Still no answer, as far as I can tell. And if he is the source, I don't think that this is peer-reviewed research at the very least, or at least like something written up so we can look at his methodology.
Yeah. Oh no,
But,
not the controlled locusts again.
Controlled locusts.
Yeah, the controlled locusts. Funny one, Harry. Thank you.
Okay,
go ahead.
so I'll just do another shout out. If
Yeah,
you guys
do
want
another
to send us
shout
a
out.
message, please go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Brian has put some weird black magic into this, so you can see your super chow.
Yes, I'm
Pop
putting
up
it
on
on the screen. I think I want more. Oh, and also, you want to really see some weirdness, you put a bunch of emotes in, and they will dance around the screen. You'll see them appear on the screen, and they'll bounce around like a ball. So feel free to drop some emotes, and then look at the screen. You'll see them. All right, but anyway, go ahead.
Let's just.
All right, let's
what
play
else
some
he
more.
has
The
to say.
locusts. Let's hear about the locust swarm.
I asked people to list all of these, what do they think are their difficulties in dating? And then I coded those into a survey, got the responses, and I found a correlation with locus of control and dating difficulty. So individuals that have a higher internal locus of control, that are more agentic, they tend to report that they have fewer difficulties dating. So that's another thing too, is that more agentic individuals in that sense, like you said, yeah, they're probably doing better.
Yeah, I think William Costello's most recent post about incels found a wildly externalized locus of control.
Yes. Exactly, yeah. His recent paper, exactly that. He looked at the same thing, locus of control, and incels had, yeah, that higher external locus of control. You know, people with an external locus of control, they see the world as like, things just happen to me. It's out of my control. Whereas people with an internal locus of control, you know, they say, I make things happen. Things don't just happen to me, you know.
All right.
Okay, you mean so like psychos?
Yeah.
In some way. I understand what he's getting at with the internal and external locus of control. However, the changes to the dating landscape are external. Like I again, I don't know why he can't see that a political group is changing the dating landscape, and in the name of protecting women from sexual and relationship violence, is making the situation more dangerous for men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's something, that's a reality that's happening, and that is outside of men's control. Like, men have no control over a false accusation. You know, they have no control over getting a partner who is abusive. Like, in some cases, I guess they could change what makes them attractive to abusive women.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of, you know, and I get it. Like, you know, men are individuals with a very externalized locus of control. You really can't do much with them until they change that, until they take some responsibility for their life. But there are some things that are out of men's hands. And the idea that feminists can basically have this level of control over the apparatus of society that dissuades people from engaging in certain activities, shall we say, and it have no effect, or men need to absorb every single effect with this belief about their internal locus of control. There's internal locus of control, and then there's delusion.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because you could say that Rasputin, you know, the Russian warlock, has a very huge internal locus of control. I mean, he thinks he can control the tides and the celestial bodies.
Yeah.
But not really true. You know, so there's a level at which just blanket saying, oh, look good, internal locus of control, good. At some point, it becomes delusion. And this idea that the dating landscape hasn't changed to become more politically and legally fraught for men seems to be delusional.
Yep. I got a couple of super chows. One really big one. It's probably not going to fit on the screen, but I'm going to click on it anyways. Plain Dane gives us $5. You see that? And says, well, let me give you a Laughing Badger chant because you made a massive paragraph. It's an essay. $5 and says, I'm surprised y'all haven't mentioned the film Hitch, The Date Doctor. The film is about a PUA/dating coach that helps average men that society would now call incels get together with women they genuinely like. The funniest thing about the movie is that it stars Will Smith, and he acts Chad-like and based, unlike in his real life where he's a nutless sissy beta cuck. In the film, he tells a woman to her face that women are the hurdle between themselves and good men that actually likes them. Honestly, this film is so relevant today, and I remember watching this film in my preteens when it came out, 2005, and watching the scene where Will tells a woman that men can't just tell women that they like them, that women are difficult. I shouted in my head, he's fucking right. Where I lost my place. In the film, Will has a backstory. Basically, he was a nerdy, nice guy that approached a girl he liked and was publicly humiliated. Then he had to glow up and became a base Chad that helps men. Watching the film now in hindsight and the juxtaposition of the character Will played makes me giggle. Highly recommend watching the film. You can find the scene on YouTube where he tells a woman that men have it hard when it comes to wooing women they like. Type Hitch, Date Doctor, -love, and you'll find it. Well, thank you. Who was that? That was like so long. Plain Dane. Thank you, Plain Dane, for the super chow. And I see people are putting emotes in the chat. I hope you guys like that.
You know, I have a great example. I got a great example of a delusional internal locus of control. Have you ever heard an addict, like an alcoholic, say, I can quit anytime? Is that not a delusional internal locus of control?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like that's basically assuming control over something that you may not actually have control over, or you haven't taken the steps to have control over. You're assuming control over it so you can dismiss actually gaining control over it. So how much of this are these men assuming control over the situation so they can avoid actually recognizing a lack of control? All right, and how much of the so-called external locus control men are men who are actually like, you know, I recognize that HR has made it more difficult to approach women in the workplace. I recognize that feminist initiatives like Me Too have made it more difficult for men to approach women at all. You know, I've recognized all this. And incidentally, all of the feminist initiatives in these areas are illegitimate at their root, at their base. And the reason why they're illegitimate is because women engage in these behaviors as much or almost as much as men. And yet we don't have interventions that are gender neutral and empower male victims of female harassers or female rapists or female sexual abusers. And because we don't, the feminist interventions are completely morally illegitimate. They've decided those victims that they care about. Well, once you've decided that you're only going to care about a certain select group of victims, you are not moral. You don't have no moral basis. And the only reason, in my opinion, that they've selected those victims is because those are the ones that make money. Just like buying into certain men at this point, because I think there's more and more men who are waking up to the fact that, no, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe when you say something like the more risk-adverse men are waking up to that, maybe it's the more risk-aware men, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Like the guys who you know, wouldn't Darwin themselves. You know, the guys who would learn military discipline so they don't die on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
right? Those guys, the risk-aware men, and the men who are aware when something is out of their hands. That isn't an external locus of control. That's simply being practical.
That's logical. Yeah.
And logical and rational. Because again, that addict, he can say to himself, oh yeah, I can quit anytime. But can he? Right? So an external locus of control isn't always accurate and isn't always something that benefits the person. Sometimes you have to recognize that things are out of your control. Paradoxically, in order to be able to change them.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I got a super chow, another one from an alien named Paul. And Paul the alien gives us $20 and says, hello there from Alpha Centauri. Your signals in the void of space got our attention. I would like to know what to do about automation putting our males out of work. What solutions have worked on Earth? Well, I guess you need men to build the machines and to repair the machines and to maintain the machines.
It's going to be a while before I think we're dealing with that when it comes to infrastructure jobs. We will likely lose white-collar jobs. Honestly, white-collar jobs...
I think women are the ones that are going to suffer the most at first. They're going to be out of a job. Yeah, it's going to be... Because all that administrative data entry bullshit, like, that's going to be gone. And there won't be need for human resources because there's fewer humans. So, doing that work. So I think, honestly, men are obviously going to lose their jobs, but I think women are going to lose more. I think they tend to, especially because they tend to gravitate towards white-collar work. So that's what I think.
Yeah.
Men are more likely to start their own businesses or whatever, so they wouldn't need to sweat that too much.
Yeah. But let's hear a little bit more. Where are
All right, I got another super chow. This is from Nova Fan. I should read. Oh, this is a Rumble rant. My apologies. Rumble rants from Nova Fan. Thank you. Put some Rumble chans in the chat, guys on Rumble. Guys, follow us on Rumble. Rumble's a great platform. Just saying, we need to make it grow. And also, thank you for people who subscribed to the gaming channel over on Rumble as well. Okay, NovaFan21 gives us $1 and says, I'd love to see him still talk big if enough feminists false flag his content to shut him down.
Well, why would they? He's a feminist.
It's inevitable. But yeah, he is a feminist, but that doesn't make him safe.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. That's true. I take that back.
Yeah.
Well, let's wait for the false accusation. It's usually the life cycle. Either he gets into some horrendous drama or there's a false accusation.
Yeah.
But okay, let's keep going.
All right, let's play some more.
Whatever happens in life, I have some control over that.
Yeah, you asked people that survey. I really loved it. You asked people about the biggest struggles with dating they were experiencing that were holding them back. What were the big takeaways that you learned from that?
Well, a big one that emerged was fear of rejection. For men specifically, dating apps, a lot said, they just don't do well on dating apps. That was another big one. A lot had to do with compatibility, and particularly some big sex differences there. About 70% of women scored highly, which was a 6 or a 7 on a 7-point Likert scale, and said, I can't find someone that I'm intellectually attracted to, which is something that I didn't expect to be so high, but apparently not being able to make an intellectual connection was one. Another difference was a lot of women, much more than men, said that they felt there was a lot of sexual pressure and demand for them. So those are things as well.
Let me pause it there for a second, because I think it's important that we unpack this thing about intellectual compatibility. I don't think that it has to do with whether or not a man is like a match for a woman intellectually. I think that when I don't know if this guy knows this, but when they say intellectually compatible, I think they mean, does he share my politics? Does he share my beliefs? Is he a feminist? And I know some of you guys might say, well, not all women on dating apps are feminists. No, basically everybody is feminist to some degree. And I think especially women. Okay, especially women. Because they're going, so when, think about it. Okay, you go on a dating site and there's women on there, and they're looking for a guy who they like, and that guy should essentially be their intellectual equal, is what they will say. Now we know that, like, you know, there's like the bell curve difference between male IQ and female IQ is like there are more women in the middle, and there are more men on the extreme ends. You know, we've gone through that. So this is, in most cases though, people are going to be like relatively evenly matched. So why is it women are still finding so many men unattractive based on intellectual compatibility? Well, I don't think it has to do with intellect. I think it has to do with, do you agree with me? Do you believe, you know, all of my do you agree with my political views? And you know how I know that? Because there was a study that came out that showed that Generation Z women and men are further apart in their political beliefs than they have been in previous generations. So they're moving further away from each other, despite the fact that, you know, there's this idea that if men lead, women will follow. It's not happening. Women are getting educated a certain way, and they're going further to the left, and men are going a little bit to the right. And that gap is growing. And for women, it is, and they see it as an irreconcilable difference because they're so certain that what they believe is correct, and so they just need to find the guy that believes that. So it's not about, to me, I don't think it's about intellectual compatibility. I think it's about, do you have the same religion as me? And men have no interest in that because they've seen how hostile feminism is to men. So you're finding that more younger men are like, well, I don't want anything to do with that because obviously that ideology hates me. So maybe their profile might even say, look, I don't. Yeah, incidentally, what?
No, keep finish your thought. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that, you know, it's if a man is upfront and says, look, I'm not interested in a woman that, you know, is feminist or whatever, then he'll probably just get rejected on that basis, because that woman will say, oh, so you hate women. And this is not, like I said, this is not something that is only like I don't know, the purview of academic feminists or political feminists or even coffee shop feminists. It's just, I think it's just the average woman, especially young women. You know, that I think that they just say, well, if you don't believe, you know, if you're not pro-Palestine, or if you're not, whatever it is, then like that we're not compatible. And that means, because, you know, I have learned that means that you are not my intellectual equal. So I think that's what the thing is. Okay, basically, if you don't share the politics of a woman, she thinks you're stupid. That's what they mean by intellectual compatibility.
Well, what I was going to say is, first of all, do you notice how we've suddenly shifted into how men are not measuring up to women?
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing that up.
Of course, women are going to find more sexual pressure, because the only men who are left with interest in them are only interested in one thing.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest.
Low gas prices.
That's not
it. Oh. A hero sandwich. No. Anyway.
Not finding someone who is physically attractive enough. Yeah, women scored higher in that as well. I think that had a Cohen's D of about 0.6. So about a medium-sized difference there. So those are all things like, I can't find someone I'm attracted to. I'm afraid to approach people because I'm afraid to be rejected. Can't make a connection with someone on an emotional or intellectual level as well.
The intellectual one is so interesting.
What?
Like a whole bunch of stuff there? Isn't he conflating a whole bunch of stuff there? Like,
yeah, a little bit.
It seems like, all right, so he's almost like saying that women are not getting this, and also their fear of rejection.
Got a lot of people watching. Welcome. See some new faces in there too. Welcome to the show.
Hello,
hope you guys subscribe and like the video so we can reach more people. This is great. And I hope that you like the new sort of layout I have here.
I hope that you're not here because you believe the clickbaity headline. We don't actually have secret. I mean,
we don't have secret knowledge, and we're not furries. Don't even bring it up. This is branding.
Honestly, of all the men that I know who talk in this sphere, I would say guys would do the best to listen to Brian. That is my co-host. Because Brian, how do I say this without, please don't take offense at this. Brian,
I won't take offense.
You hit way above your weight.
Oh, well, thank you. Wait, what are you talking about? I love my wife. I think she's beautiful. I love you, baby. I think you're beautiful. Okay, but I hit above my weight. What do you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that you are good with the ladies. You know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to say that, like, honestly, I think that you have a lot of natural talent when it comes to being, well, maybe not natural, because you've talked about at length.
Yeah, I had to work on it.
Yeah, you have like a social facility, and you're good with being able to develop women's interest in you, at least from the past. I mean, no, now you're with your wife, and I mean, I find that more something for men who are interested in having a woman to listen to than like gym bros like these two dudes.
Yeah.
Who are still in their late 20s, pupae stage of being pickup artists. I don't know about Chris. Maybe Chris is totally not out of that. But I mean, I've seen over the last 25 years, I've seen a ton.
Jim Bottle says,
"Oh, hold on.
He's a brilliant young man." Alfredo St. Jean says, "Selling Brian as a guru."
I don't know why it's doing that. I didn't.
Delco says,
Brian, oh my God, you gotta stop!
I didn't do that. It like there's a text to speech thing. I guess it turned on.
It's in the tubes.
Yeah, this thing's got lots of gizmos, man. I can do text to speech on comments. I can like make the emotes dance. I have control over the chat. I'm just saying.
Okay, all right. Just maybe more.
I turned it off. I don't know why I turned it on, but I turned it off.
Okay, great. But what I'm trying to get at is, like, I've seen like the DatePsych Alex guy. I've seen a lot of pickup artists like him, and they sort of have a life cycle. It seems like they go through this, then they go through, I don't know, a good period where everything's working out for them. Then they hit the wall, and then I swear to fucking God, they turn into like a Hollywood starlet over the age of 50. You know what I mean? Like just constant drama, constant like crying, mascara everywhere. And it's just like he's in that kind of, okay, he's doing okay stage. And then he's going to either hit a false accusation, or maybe things aren't going to start working out for him. But my overall point is that they're skating by on the fact that they're young and good looking right now.
Yeah.
Right? And they're fit. They don't have the problems of normal people or normal men, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to listen to, like, honestly, it's like a 50-year-old woman listening to a 20-year-old woman about how she deals with her life. It's like, yeah, your solutions are not relevant to my life, lady. You know, like, listening to guys like this for dating advice is pointless. If I want to convey anything to the people listening, don't go to guys like this for dating advice.
Yeah, what I find about these guys, and I say this with with some concern for generalizing. So I don't follow Alex DatePsych. I don't know him very well, so I could very well be wrong. So maybe I'm not saying this about this person, but what I've noticed about a lot of these PUA types is that there is definitely like experience and knowledge about dynamics between men and women. But what's missing to me is authenticity. And I'm not saying they're lying, but I feel like I'm not getting the real person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm getting like the product. So Alex, he's got like the hair and the braid on his little beard, and he's wearing a shirt that shows off. Like, it's like when, you know, it's like there's a saying. I don't know if you know the saying, but like the saying is that men are salesmen and women are marketers. And what it means is men have to approach and they have to sell themselves to women. And women they just get dressed up, they get ready, and essentially they are marketed. They market themselves. So it doesn't work. It's like the difference between going to someone's house and trying to sell them a vacuum cleaner and someone going into a store and there's a vacuum cleaner on display. And it's like really well displayed, right? And so what I get from guys like Alex is that he's kind of marketing himself. Like, you can tell that he was like, I'm going to sit down, do this interview, and I'm going to set up everything to look like I am totally the Chad. Like, I get the ladies, right? And because of that, I just get this sense that there's something inauthentic about it. And I appreciate authenticity. I was talking to Paul Elam weeks ago because he lives here in Roanoke, and we did a brunch together. And I was talking about this stuff, and one of the things he said about me was, he says that, it's not, you don't see people who are authentic, like, online. There's a lot of, I don't want to say fakeness, but, there's just a lot of people, like, they, like, play a character, they're putting on a show, they got a thing, and then I never figured that out, so I just didn't bother. So, but I think authenticity is what people want. I think especially now that the internet's become like kind of passe, like normalized, like it's not like, oh my God, that person's on the internet, that's weird. Right now, everybody's on the internet. So I think there is something about that. And I don't get that. I do kind of get it from Chris Williamson, I have to say, but I don't get it from Alex. I feel like he's giving us a representative. He's setting an ambassador for his brand, right?
Well, Chris looks like he's just sort of...
He's just like a fitness... He's like a fitness guy, yeah. But
he's on a journey. But my point is that when you look at these guys, and yeah, sure, I mean, maybe they can be inspirational to go and get your fitness goals in and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to have an experience with the average man's experience with the dating pool. They're just not. So wait until they start to be on the other side of the curve, and men have this too. When they start to get gray in their beard, when like they're starting to deal with erectile difficulties, other kind of stuff, there start to be less that lifestyle tend to be getting less and less from it, and that's when you have to ask, okay, well, now you have to rely on your authenticity. Now you have to rely on your social skills that you've developed. And how do they do then? And in my experience, like I was saying, a lot of these guys crash and burn. So I think that the benefit you're going to get out of talking to or listening to a guy who is a, I don't know, 7 or higher, like up there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is going to be minimal if you're an average guy. And what you want to look for is guys who've got their life pretty well set up, and they are, they're not really high. They're not part of the group of men who women would look at and say, oh yeah, he's attractive immediately. That makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that they're unattractive, but
I think
what I mean?
what guys are trying to do, like Alex, I think if they appear put together, then other men will find that inspiring. But I think that if you're comfortable and you have like a I don't care what you think about me kind of attitude, I think that you might do better. I think that men have like there's something, men don't look at just like, oh, look at how shredded that guy is. I think that men are like, oh wow, that guy, he's so frank, he's so earnest, he's so, he's got integrity, he seems honorable, right? He's decent but not a pushover. That's the stuff that I think guys want to see. I think it's like these kind of internal qualities. They're expressing the virtues like temperance and some stoicism and and wisdom. I think that's the stuff that guys want.
Yeah,
they want to see that because that's what they want to.
I know it's just me.
Yeah.
But if I were talking to Alex, I think I'd find that thing on his chin very distracting. But I'm just a freaking autist.
Some women are. I guess some women are into it.
No, I know. He's probably niche maxing of some kind.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that would just be triggering my autism the entire time. He'd probably find me like creeping after him with a pair of scissors.
Yeah. I kind of regret telling people about the emotes because now Jan Newman can't stop putting them on the screen. But anyway, you want to play some more, or how much further do you want to go? Should we wrap it up? We can do more of this. I got a
spazzing doggo. Just a second.
Okay, go ahead and deal with that. There is a couple of other sections that I think is useful, but we don't want to do the whole thing. I would say takeaways from Alex's survey on dating struggles is good. Trying to correct the ideology of incels might be, like, I think that could be its own show. Some of this other stuff is kind of like no shit, you know, but I think it'd be good to go through the what the red pill is doing to marriage part, because I think that bit, I don't remember it exactly, but I feel like it's kind of in the same ballpark that like a lot of these Daily Wire guys were doing, where they were just like, well, it's tough, but you just got to do it. And Pearl was giving it to them, and rightly so. I think that's more like that, and I think that it's very important, because the thing is, like, we gotta, you gotta fix the laws, guys. That's the only way. Like, you gotta fix the laws. I'm sorry. I am a small government guy. I don't want to bring the state in, but the only way this is gonna change is it's not bringing the state in, it's taking it out. That's what has to happen. You have to get it out of marriage. You have to get it out of divorce. You have to make things more, just. I don't even want to say equitable or fair. I just want to say just. It has to be more just. And it's not right now. And, you're seeing this all the time. Like, speaking of the rejection thing. I don't remember off the top of my head. Let me look real quick. But do you remember the story? There was like a sports thing in Spain or something. Let me see here.
Yep.
The one?
He kissed her because
the guy, yeah. Rubiales banned for 3 years over World Cup kiss. Former Spanish Football Federation President Luis Rubiales is banned from all football-related activities for 3 years by FIFA because he was excited at like a victory and he kissed one of the players, right? It was a woman. And yeah, like this is why men are a little bit reluctant to approach. You could tell me this is rare, but the point is that these are very high profile examples and they're everywhere. And some of these guys, they go to jail for decades. What was his name from that 70s show? He got like 30 something years for like something that is not proven that happened like 20 years ago. I mean, why would guys put themselves through that? And these are like the top 1%. Masterson, that's right. These guys are like 1% dudes. Like, these are guys that can have anyone. Danny Masterson, thank you, Tree Surgeon. And so like, what happens to the regular guy? What happens to the regular guy? And then his friends, his co-stars or whatever from that 70s show, is like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, they throw him under the bus. We believe survivors. We don't even know. So like, have you guys considered that climate? What? And also these polls, this poll he supposedly conducted, how do we know when men answer them they're not concerned about what the reaction would be if they said, I'm worried about legal consequences? And so instead they just say, well, I'm afraid of rejection. But really, it's this other thing. I just don't want people to think, because if you say, well, I don't want to be falsely accused, what's the feminist response to that? Well, what do you have to be afraid of? Are you some kind of abuser? So it's kind of like, it's a, damned if you do, damned if you don't. All right, I got another super chat from Albernita Retro. Gives us $2 and says, Brian gained confidences doing his Menudo days. I was not in Menudo. I don't know who told you that. If I was, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I'd be on the Saved by the Bell remake or something. Be hosting Extra. All right, I think that's all the super chows. So Do you want to keep going, or should we like wrap it up or something?
Let's okay, how far are we into this section?
This is kind of like close to the middle of it. So there's probably, what are we at? 10:44. There's like 2 minutes left.
See if we can get through it.
All right, let's play the rest of this.
And kind of runs against, I think, a lot of common held dating commentary on the internet, because it's very difficult for us to quantify what intellectual compatibility or sapiosexual success actually is, right? Like, no one's talking about that on the internet. You know, they'll say, and I hear this, Soho House as a research base for you to go out of should be one of the first places that you look at. If you sit around the pool at any Soho House on a Saturday afternoon in a relatively warm country, you will get so many fascinating stories about girls in their, so from 25 to 40 and their dating challenges. And dude, it's my ethnographic, like, in-person research center, and I'll just sit and just ask questions or overhear conversations about what people are talking about. And a lot of the conversations that these girls are saying is, you know, guys are intellectually immature, emotionally immature. They don't really understand how to take care of themselves. And then I say, okay, so have you tried dating older? Like, if you look.
Okay, pausing it there. So these guys aren't measuring up in some other way. So what are the... Okay, what are you going to say?
No,
Should I play the rest of this?
Yeah, just play the rest of it. Like, the thing is that, I mean, yeah, okay, your anecdote is fascinating.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Men are held to a standard of maturity. Are women.
Yeah.
They're held to it. In other words, women are judged based on how well they control their crying, their emotions, so they don't express them, that they focus on goals, that they focus on protecting and providing for others, that kind of adult behavior. Like, how much are you know, what are these women comparing these men to themselves? I mean, and honestly, it's not that I necessarily disagree with him. In my own experience, there is a deficit in kind of socialization of men, but it's because they don't have relationships with other men anymore. Like, you don't have the bull elephant sort of teaching the younger elephants not to be dicks, or, you know, I don't mean quite like that, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Basically, you're just saying, what's the situation for women?
You have a whole branch of socialization of young men that doesn't happen anymore. Because originally it happened through boys and men socializing with each other.
Yep.
To a degree, you know.
And fathers.
And fathers.
And brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that's not really happening. All right. I got a super chat from Albert Data Retro. He just dropped some emojis. So thank you. I don't know, laugh emoji, cry laugh emoji, and then, like, I guess a rolling cry laugh. I don't even know how to describe it, but thank you for the emojis and the $2 Canadian. Thank you. Okay.
Looked at, you know, 30, 35, 40. They say, yeah, and, you know, these problems aren't necessarily solved by the passage of time. That there are, you know, adult infants and sort of man children all over the place. And again, with this, it would be the low resolution solution to this would be don't worry about trying to become intellectually or emotionally interesting or mature. Just earn more, and you will be able to offset your emotional immaturity. That would be kind of common held internet wisdom, at least for a lot of men.
Okay, just a second. Are you fucking kidding me? Consider the difference in standard that women are held to in terms of their behavior towards men, and the difference in standard of men are held to towards their behavior in women. Like, men are told not to hit women. Okay? That is legally enforced. All of the evidence points to women hitting more. And the only evidence that supposedly contradicts that is taken from highly selected studies of, I don't know, women in abused women's shelters. So yeah, women are hitting more unilaterally than men. Women engage in more coercive control. Like, what standard are we using here? I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you when you say that boys or young men are not poorly socialized. I would agree with you. There's a huge component of their socialization that they would have gotten in the past that they're no longer getting, which is relationships with other men, which is positive relationships with other men, which is other men helping them and teaching them how to behave, how to have a conversation, how to take turns talking, how to present something interesting, how to tell when someone's fucking bored at what you're talking about. All of that stuff usually was worked out between men. Okay? And I've seen that process in the Discord. Okay? That doesn't happen. So there are some guys that I've seen, even floating into the Discord, the HBR Discord, absolutely terribly socialized. Like, and the funny thing is that these guys are usually the ones that are absolutely obsessed with the idea that a woman is going to fix them.
Yeah.
You know, a woman's going to come into our... It is a religious belief. It's like, the femme Jesus is going to come into my life and my life will be perfect. That's like, no, that's not going to happen. But they need that belief in order to keep functioning. You know, and yeah, there is a big problem. We have constructed a gigantic problem for ourselves. And the least of it is that women who are most likely as infantile, if not more, than the men that they're complaining about, aren't getting approached and aren't getting the relationships they want. That's the least of it at this point. Yep. I'm more concerned about making sure young men continue with the, you know, like, I mean, just on a personal, selfish level, I'd like to keep electricity as a thing.
Yeah, I like running water, plumbing.
Yeah. You guys are talking about, oh, the young men's aren't approaching. Who gives a fuck? Let's keep electricity as a thing. And we'll worry about this other shit as it goes. I mean, it's really critical because we do need to have a future. But here's the other thing. What happened to, you know, the whole idea that women, I mean, we used to talk about how women socializing men was like, you know, it's sort of misandrous. But that's almost better than this. Yeah. It's like you expect this man to just act like someone who has been in a long-term relationship would act. Like, the thing is that the long-term relationship itself is the process of accommodating each other, you know, learning to when you need to just be like, okay, dear, and then they'll do it for you when you're having a hissy fit over, I don't know, having a migraine or something, right? You know, it's a give and take. And learning that give and take is a process of maturation in and of itself. So what happened to this whole thing, like, oh, you get into a relationship with a man, you grow together. So to a degree, you raise him. He most likely raises you too. All right? You grow as people together. I guess that's out the window. Now they just want a man who is perfect right out of the starting gate? Are they? I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. I just like how all of this has gone from, you know, men are cowards or men are risk adverse. That's why they're not approaching women, to men are not actually giving women what they want. Men are children. Like, okay, Chris, because you seem the more sensible of the two. At what point do you stop blaming men? Yeah. Like, you know, like, because this is something that we all do in this society. It's very rare to find people who don't do it. We're some of them. Okay, but what we've noticed, us standing here on the not blaming men, you know, side part of side, which is very thin, let's admit it. Yeah, it's a very small side. We notice that you guys on the other side, that's basically all you do. You just sit there, you know, and you got, I don't know, you're like on a mound surrounded by alligators, which are the brass tacks of the reality that you're constructing for yourself. And you're like a bunch of fucking dodo birds, like you, Chris. And you're just sitting there. And then one of you gets snapped up by an alligator, and you're like, no, oh, that's men's fault. And then another one gets snapped up by an alligator. Oh, that's men. It's like, and it's starting to feel like blaming men is basically your way of saying we refuse to recognize the problem as the alligators.
Yep.
Good Lord. All right.
All right.
Let's hear some more blaming men.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people don't think about that. And something I noticed when I followed up and I saw that it was so big on that intellectual compatibility, I asked people, well, what does that mean to you when you see a question like that? And a lot of men interpret it to mean like, but I'm very intelligent. I have a very high IQ. And I don't think that's exactly what women mean when they're saying I can't find a man who is intellectually compatible. I don't think they mean.
Yeah, they mean politically compatible. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is the problem. Is that, and the truth is too, that's not really what women want. Like they'll say that, but I think what women want generally is someone who's going to at least challenge them. Like I mean, they may not say it, but I think that's what they want. I think anybody wants a friend or partner that they feel challenged by because they respect that. And I think that when you ask women what they want, they generally don't tell you. I mean, I'm sorry, for danger of like, you know, making stereotypes. I think generally women don't say what they want. They just kind of feel it, and then like, and they have to make these kind of assumptions. They have to say, oh, you know, I want him to be intellectually compatible, which means I want him to agree with me politically. But if I allow that, I'm going to basically like hate him because he's not going to push back on anything. He's not going to challenge me. He's just going to agree with everything. So they say, I want a simp, but I don't want a simp. So that's the problem. And that's what I think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think. So, you know what I'm saying, Allison? Or... I mean, you can disagree.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But here's again, we're talking about how men are disappointing women in relationships. And the problem is that men are no longer approaching women for relationships.
Yes.
Like, do you understand how this seems to be like this discussion seems really dumb? Like, the progression of the discussion is men aren't approaching women for relationships. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's because they're risk adverse. Your assumption is that these men actually want relationships now.
Yeah.
Like that. There's the other assumption. Like, guys can say, "Yeah, I'm risk adverse," but it's more than just risk. It's risk assessment. So these men are not just looking at, "Oh, I could face a false accusation." They're looking at, "I could face a false accusation, and at the end of the day, is it worth it?" And they're saying no.
Yeah. They're opting out. It's like they're removing themselves from the equation.
They've just decided it's not worth it. So why are we now having a discussion about how the men who haven't opted out are failing the women that they're with? Because this is actually sort of hilarious too, because he's saying, well, if you just keep at it, if you endure a year of rejection, you might be one of the lucky 13% that ends up in a long-term relationship. Incidentally, a lot of that 13% was 2 long-term relationships in a year. So these are not long-term relationships. I don't know how the hell he's defining them. Yeah. But anyway.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, so this, you might be part of the, but here's how if you're part of that long-term relationship, here's how you're disappointing the ladies. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Just let's blame men more. Oh. Bob got eaten. Blame men. Okay, let's keep going.
All right, a little bit more.
Everyone is stupid or they're not high IQ. I think they mean, is it someone that's interesting, that can connect to me emotionally, that can connect to me on a mental level and relate to me, which is related to cognitive abilities, part of what's called social cognition, theory of mind. How well do you understand the emotional states of another person? How well can you predict accurately what the other person is thinking? I think not being boring is actually a really big part of it as well, as far as that intellectual compatibility. If you have nothing that you relate on,
hey, here you go,
being
guys.
able to relate to someone is probably a big part of it. Where if
I'm just saying, this is something that you can completely avoid by just not even bothering.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like playing whack-a-mole.
Everyone's hobbies are different.
Here's what it is. Okay. All right. So this guy is trying to tell men who have decided that the risk is not worth it. And again, it's not just these guys are like, oh, we're just risk averse and we're just not doing it. It's also, it's a calculation. Is this risk worth the reward? Every risk aversive person is going to be making these calculations. You think those guys don't get into the car and drive to work? Yes, that's a risk. But the reward for them is worth it. I bet they fly. That's a risk. But the reward for them is worth it. Hell, they probably even have dangerous hobbies. Again, the reward is worth it. Okay? So when you call them risk adverse, you're only capturing one side of the equation. The other side is the reward worth it? Now, men who are more risk adverse are going to have a higher criteria for reward in order to take a risk. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like they might risk if it's something that they really want, they may risk it. Okay? But it's going to be a higher. So if the quality of the good that they're risking for is going down, they're more likely to walk away. Just out of a practical assessment of the relationship between risk and reward. And incidentally, the other thing is that if you're finding that the men who still approach women have high risk tolerance, that may also be a distortion of the fact that most of them are fucking psychos. Okay? All right. But anyway, so these guys who are avoiding approaching women, the reward is not worth the risk for them. It's not just the risk. The reward is not worth the risk. And what you're doing here, I guarantee, is reinforcing the fact that the reward is not worth the risk. Okay?
Yep.
This entire conversation about being intellectually compatible, as a woman, if I was hearing men judging me based on that, I would be turned off. Okay? Because it doesn't make any fucking goddamn be this way, be that way, but don't be that way. I'm like, what? Can we just have an honest relationship? You know what I mean? It just sounds like a bunch of hokum. Right? Like, do you share interests? Do you generally share a set of principles? Okay, good. Can you enjoy each other's company? Okay, good. The end. What the hell is this shit? I'm going to tell you how I respond as a woman to this. And I think men have every right to respond in the same way. This sounds like a bunch of abusive hoops that somebody is setting up and taking out their whip and smacking you in the ass and saying, jump. Why would anyone want to subject themselves to this bullshit? And I'm just simply looking at this as a woman and how I'm reacting to it if a man presented this shit to me. Right? And I believe in equality, Alex. So I believe men can look at what you're saying and say, no, thank you. I have to go through a year of fucking rejection to just be part of the lucky 13% who has to jump through these shitting hoops. No, that's okay. Do you get what I'm coming from?
Yeah, no, I do. Absolutely. Pretty
like he's not really selling this.
No.
He's not really selling the reward here. Good Lord. And here, that is a lot of my position on all of these things. I look at this situation as a woman. I imagine how I would feel if I had to do this shit. And I'm like, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like having to go up to men over and over and over again, risking them picking out some quality that I have that they find objectionable, mocking me for it, and then going to their friends and whispering about me so that they can laugh too. Okay? If that was going to happen, that actually might, as a woman, that might make me never approach a man again. And then I imagine, and that's not even just the going up there. Like we started this whole discussion, and Chris was talking about how a woman expressed the feeling of rejection. No, it's not worse for women. It's just men are more inured to it. So that feeling, I wouldn't want to have to go through that daily or weekly for a year in order to have a 1 in 10 chance of something like a long-term relationship. Okay? If this was the situation for women, there would be an entire feminist sub-movement devoted to how approaching men is misogyny. Having to approach men is misogyny, and women shouldn't be expected to do it. Okay, so all of this shit doesn't even go into how it would feel if I approached a man. You know, I'm running the risk. Okay, maybe he rejects me politely, fine. Most men would, right? That's fine. I can deal with that. It's not too bad. One in like, I don't know, 10 is going to do something really shitty, like mock me with his friends, and then just start, you know, doing like the group sniggering thing. Okay, fine. I guess I'll just get a therapist, right? And some Xanax and drink myself to sleep. You know, then we get into 1 in 100 might charge me with something. You know, might go to the bouncer, and then I get thrown out in my ear, and all the patrons of the bar are staring at me like I'm a leper. Or it cocks to HR, and I get fucking fired, and I can't support myself. Or, you know, they go to the police, and then suddenly I have a whole bunch of fucking cops in my life. I'm like thinking about this, and this is getting a little bit more intense. I'm more like, I'm doing all this for a 1 in 10 chance. And then I have this dude telling me about how, as a woman, I'm going to have to go into a relationship and try to understand all of the mental hoops this man wants me to jump through in order to make him feel good about himself, which is a moving target because, you know, he's externalized all that shit, you know, and he's made it my responsibility to make him feel whatever thing he wants to feel. And it doesn't seem, it's like, it's never clear what I should be saying, or there's no concretes, there's no explanation. So it's always just a moving target. Wow. So I have jumped through the hoop of simple rejection, the hoop of rejection that is also like, socially traumatic, the hoop of rejection that could have serious social consequences, serious legal consequences, serious consequences to my career. I have landed on getting a relationship with a man. Now I have to jump through more stupid hoops, ill-defined hoops, to illustrate some ability that is so vague. It's just nonsense. I mean, at this point, as a woman looking at this, I'm like, guys, why? Like, as a woman, I wouldn't do it. I mean, you've pretty much lost me at like a year worth of rejection, friend. I'm not doing it. Okay? Much less all of that other shit. And then my reward is some dude is going to be whipping me through fucking hoops of fire? Good Lord! You are the worst salesman.
How about
dude?
you?
Like, I would not be surprised that men are watching this video and immediately they're like, you know, I was going to go out and, you know, they're listening to this dude talk about all this shit. He was like, you know, I was going to go out and maybe see if I could say hi to a lady, but after listening to this dude and what I'm going to get, fuck it. I mean, he's single-handedly probably turning more men off of relationships. But do continue to tell us about all of the things that men are doing wrong, all of the things that men are failing the women in their relationships, all of the ways that men are immature or selfish or not intellectually hoop jumping enough. Okay, keep going with that. I'm sure there'll be a few more of the people in your side of the line of male blame that disappear, and nobody can tell why. I don't know.
Well,
I really stretched that metaphor.
No, it's okay. I think this is a good place to stop it. We've gone for like a little over 2 hours.
Like, fucking wrong. Like, I'm looking at all of this and I don't understand it.
Yeah, I know.
As a woman, I would have walked away long ago. And yeah. Like these guys, like the way that they present this shit, I'm like, this is not a situation for a human. This is not fit for man nor beast. Okay?
Yeah, I understand. Mm-hmm.
And I believe in equality, so I think men should have every right to have the opinion and the emotions that I have towards this situation. Okay, but continue to turn men off relationships, Alex. There's no skin off my nose, really.
Yeah. All right, well, let me look here. I don't have any more super chows or super chats or rumble rants.
Oh, come on,
So,
guys. Send
that's
us
okay.
that super chow.
We got, yeah, you could. I mean, there's still a little time. But this is good. I think we got the gist. Maybe we can go maybe another time we could do trying to correct the ideology of incels, which is a really small section.
Have we finished this section?
Yeah, it's basically
Seems like
finished.
there's a little bit left there.
There's like 2 minutes left.
2 minutes to this section?
Yeah, to this section.
Let's try it. Just a little bit more.
All right, let me go back to it.
You know, someone could be really smart, but you still might not find intellectual compatibility there. So it's not necessarily men are stupid. I think everyone's dumb. But it could be kind of like you said, you know, I have a hard time relating to these men. They seem very immature in that sense.
Yeah, I think just paying attention to people seems to be incredibly rare. You know, it's kind of, I guess guys talk about this a lot, that it sometimes seems to men that when they're in a relationship, women respond to them differently than when they're not. You know, they're just sat around a dinner table or a bar or whatever, just having a chat. And I wonder whether that kind of gets rid of a few things. The fact that if you're in a committed relationship, you're not trying to pull. So
okay, I think this is worth bringing up.
Digression.
It is a little bit, but I think there's an important point here. So what Chris Williamson is trying to say is that, and I think the other guy's probably going to agree with him, women are more attracted to men who are already accounted for, who are already married or already in relationships. And I think that what they're speculating is, oh, well, if a man is in a relationship, he's going to carry himself a little differently. He's going to have a different way that he presents himself, a different way he carries himself. He's going to have more confidence, etc. And I think to some degree that is true. When I'm with, when I'm with Lindsay, I get a lot more looks and stuff, but I think that's part of it. But I also think that women want what other women have. And I think this goes back to the whole thing about where I was talking about how the numbers that they ask for, 666, it's not that they're like looking at the height of a guy and like they know how tall he is or how much is in his bank account. They just see that he is a guy that they usually look at it from like the relationship. Oh, my friend has a guy that has all these things, so I gotta have a guy that has these things. So it's almost still it's still intersexual competition, and a man who's with someone is already qualified because he's with someone. So now the women want to be with that guy. So it's partly probably because of the way that he carries himself and the way that he acts. But I think another big part of it is the fact that the woman is like, well, he's with someone, so he must be worth having. And that's what, though a man who's alone is actually disadvantaged even more because women are like, well, why are you with somebody? What's wrong with you? Right? So this is like a bigger challenge for guys. And that guy could be like well put together, have, be in really great shape, have like good money, be really intelligent, but if he's alone, then women are gonna be like, well, why is he alone? What's wrong? So, anyway, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a digression, but like I said, this.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where
this
goes.
A female perspective. This sounds like a horrible deal. Like you're constantly jumping through hoops. You jump through hoops with the rejection. You jump through hoops with the legal consequences. You jump through hoops in the relationship. And all your reward is more hoops to jump through. Yep. God damn. Like what baffles me is not that men are walking away. What baffles me is the men who still play.
Yeah.
Congratulations, guys. You're really taking one for the team there.
All right. Want to play the rest of it?
I think that's going to be okay. Let's see what Alex has to say.
So it actually does a couple of things. It lowers the stakes because there's no such thing as rejection here. She's not on the docket as far as you're concerned. And I also wonder whether some of the sort of chest beating, peacock tail fluffing that kind of goes on when guys feel like they need to do a thing to impress a girl, and maybe even counter signals that they don't like, whereas the dude that sits back and asks what she's interested in or just kind of lets this person waffle on at them actually comes across as being more intellectually engaging because they're just letting it come and go nice and easily.
Yeah, exactly. Some fluency in conversation there is probably really related to it as well, because something we know about sex differences in intelligence is that men tend to score a little bit higher in visuospatial, but women tend to score a little bit higher in verbal intelligence. So women may be a little bit better at communicating and having those conversations, holding them and engaging. And so if men are not, in general, if they're a little bit worse, women might struggle to find that. Like, is this someone that can kind of just ramble on in a sense? Can they hold an interesting conversation?
There's nothing in his cosmology about the worth of women, the reward that men get for facing these risks. None of it. It's like a complete void. And I honestly don't know why, because if he's a dating coach, he has no ability to change that. All he can do is make money off of men's thirst. And if men's thirst dries up, where is he?
Yes.
Hello, guys?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
One thing that men could learn that I don't know if this guy offers is how to discern, discernment around women to figure out what they should have, what are their virtues.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, that's good. I don't think we have to add anything more to that. I'm
that's
just
good.
saying, like, it's not really selling. If I were a man, this wouldn't be selling relationships to me. Not only do you have to jump through a year through a little full of hoops of rejection in order to even have a chance at a something like a long-term relationship. I don't know if I really define 2 long-term relationships in a year as being long-term relationships, but have a chance at a long-term relationship. But then what you get is more hoops to jump through.
Yep.
Ugh.
Okay, I got a super chow. I just got one from Plain Dane, and he gives us $5 through super chow and says it's kind of like the quote "I won't hire you because you have no experience" meme. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like a man who is in a relationship is like, he's essentially like social proof. So that's going to be attractive to women because they're really risk averse, right? So they're going to want to be involved with something that's a sure thing or close to a sure thing. All right. So that's all of the super chats. Let me just double check here. No, nothing else. So Allison, why don't you, I guess, take us out? Thanks, guys, for the show. Hope you like what we did today. And
well, I mean, technically, you're gonna take us out.
I am, but you had you can do like the last things, and I'll take you out.
All right. So if you at any point after this show is over, you want to send us a message, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We will endeavor to read the message at the next relevant show, and it's great to get a tip from you guys because. We know we're not screaming into the void. Sometimes it does really feel like we're screaming into the void. And I do hope some of you recognized how they had that strange shift from why aren't men approaching to how are men disappointing women in relationships? Did you notice that? Mm-hmm. That's a really strange shift.
Absolutely.
And I think that he's doing a really good job. Like if I just look at this, and it's a woman's perspective, he's doing a really good job at not selling me on relationships. If I had to take the male role in this entire passion play, I'll be like, yeah, that sounds like a bum deal. Forget it. But anyway, if you would like to send a message about any of this kind of stuff, want to get your 2 cents in, please go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We really do appreciate it, guys, because it does tell us that you appreciate us. And that's a wonderful feeling that you're enjoying this content. So once again, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Okay, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I got one other thing I wanted to say. So Dr. Randermacam is in the States visiting with Lauren in Connecticut, and they want to come down to Roanoke around International Men's Day, which is Friday the 17th of this month. And what they specifically, Mike and I were talking about, is doing a meetup. So I know that Roanoke, Virginia isn't exactly, you know, the most poppin' joint, but there are some places that we can go to, and it's you know, like on the east-ish coast. So if you're interested in coming to our meetup, we're gonna do a meetup on Saturday the 18th. So because Friday the 17th isn't great for everybody, I think they'll be coming in, you know, probably like right around that day. So what we're thinking is we are gonna do something on Saturday the 18th, do a meetup. I have some bars picked out that we could go to and like just kind of like hang out with each other. So if you're interested in joining us for a meetup, that's the plan. Don't have a location just yet. We're just gonna like focus on letting you know we have that planned, and it's gonna be in Roanoke, and that's the southwestern part of Virginia. So if you're interested, maybe, you know, let us know in the comments. Would you like to go? We're gonna set up the things very soon and probably mention it again tomorrow on the news show. So anyway, that's it for International Men's Day. It'll be Lauren, me, Mike, and my wife Lindsay, and maybe Jojo, depending on like what, you know, where we can take him. So that's it. I just want to let you know that. So anyway, with all that out of the way, if you guys like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. If you want to watch the full interview, there's a link in the description. We might do more of this later, I don't know. But for now, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming out today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we'll talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.